from the international to the domestic, maybe switching before probably we go back to the international again, there was a leftist candidate in the presidential election, Bahu.
Yes.
Failed to gain traction. In fact, apart from the two leading candidates, nobody else of the 19 got any kind of media publicity. We saw or heard anything related to what their policies were. I think at the end of the day, a couple of them dropped or got into the mainstream political parties. But there were 22 odd characters. And, you know, do you see on April 8th and in the leading up to that, the parliamentary elections, what we didn't see in the presidential election, the form of an argument, an issue-based debate led by, say, the left, on vital, fundamental issues of our democracy in Sri Lanka?
In two parts, my answer. Relating to your comment about the left not having made an impact. This is not just in the presidential election. This has been the case for the several. It has been a two-party system, effectively. It was a three-party system in the heyday of the LSSP. Although the LSSP was a junior partner compared to the larger parties, it was a three-party system until about 1970. Right. Since then we have had this phenomenon of a two-party system, and maybe we want to talk about that later, why that should be so. But leaving that to one side and coming to the second part of your question, which is about whether we might see a resurgence.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen it in the past.
So I think that the two-party system may or is coming to an end with the extent of repression. The two-party system can function as long as democracy or bourgeois democracy or whatever the word you use is running. Then people will stay with that game because why not? But there is now, and I fear, and many people fear, that the threats to democracy are far more serious than we have ever had. Even during the worst period of the J.R. Jayawardena so-called constitutional Bonapartism, I don't think the threats to democracy were so serious. In the 89 to 90 period, we had a suspension of democracy, but that passed. It seems that this is something that's going to stay. Now, if repression continues, and if repression becomes serious, then the two-party system becomes meaningless because, as I say, people are going to opt out of that. And I think that in the event that the repressive tendencies and the trend to despotic or dictatorial forms of governance become stronger, I see the JVP playing a much stronger role. And I believe that that is where people will see, will see an alternative because the system, the parties of the system, the UNP and the SLFP are gone.
But the JVP as an alternative to the predominant two parties?
Not necessarily as an alternative government immediately, but as a pole of attraction, which will become very strong. And a re-emergence of a three-party, if not a three-party, a three-pole thing where you have the government party, with, as it is, we have a UNP which is stronger, which has been rendered not important, but much weaker, and another force, a pro-left force, and the JBP is broadly a left organization. Together with the smaller left party, will be compelled to go into an alliance with that.
You said people opt out of that system. Now, how do you opt out of that, of whom you've elected into power? Are you seeing, for example, I don't, but perhaps you do, a Myanmar-type uprising, a saffron revolution, a Nepal-type uprising against the king, a Philippine People's Movement, or an Iranian Green Revolution? Do you see that kind of vast grassroots-led or people-led movement in the country?
Not if the degree of repression remains no worse than it is now.
What do you mean by how do people opt out?
They opt out of the two-party system.
By expression.
They opt out of the two-party system, out of those two, and they work with those forces which are much stronger in meeting the threats that are coming forward. Take the simple question. Not going into the question of whether the detention of General Fonseca is lawful or unlawful. I believe it's unlawful, but not going into that. It seems that the closing down of the Lanka press, the disappearances of journalists, which is causing more and more havoc. Now, when those things keep happening, people will look for the pole which can, not Myanmar type uprising, but which can demonstrate against it, which can go on the streets against it, which is not afraid of speaking its mind out. And I believe that people will see that option as coming around, not just the JVP, but another more militant grouping of parties in which the JVP will be stronger.
It's quite disturbing, isn't it, actually? What you're suggesting is possibly leading to civil conflict in the South. One outcome could very much be, you did say militant, could be a militant uprising again.
And this is why we must hope that the government does not go any further down the road of repression. I see the threat. I am not certain it will go that way, because I do see Mahinda Rajapaksa now distancing himself a little bit from repression. A little bit. I don't know where it will go. I remember him making statements after he took over the media ministry.
Yeah, to give that all the IGP has to...
I'm not going to do that. I'm against it.
Right.
And he's even talking about the release of Sirimal Watta. Where he says, look, I wanted it done. There's no reason for holding. Sirimal Watta poo-hooed it. But you can see that the president is probably concerned about
at the very same
time.
time.
I'm not certain, but it's possible that he can pull back.
But, I mean, recently in one of your columns, you cooked up the acronym LIDA, the Lanka Internet Dark Ages.
Yes.
And this was referring to, of course, the recent announcement that there will not be web censorship. And
there will be web censorship.
But the president has ordered...
exactly.
I mean, so there was confusion as to whether there was or there wasn't. That the president needs to order it to not be so is, for many, a point of concern. Because that means that actually plans were afoot. So, I mean, where do you get your confidence then that the president is actually distancing himself away from...
I did not get my confidence. I did not say he would do it. I said that there are indications that he may pull back.
Right. Do you honestly see a change after parliamentary elections on April 8th, or do you see a consolidation of power?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I feel confident, and I certainly very much hope that this government will not get a 2/3 majority. That will be disaster. That will be very, very problematic if they get. I am not sure whether they will do very well or not.
In what sense do you do?
In the number of seats that they procure, that they get.
Right.
Because SLP people and pro-government people now say it's too much, it's too dangerous. I mean, people who intend to vote Beetle Leaf are now a little worried whether so much concentration of focus of power is a bad thing. I hope that they are in fact concerned, in which case you will have a strong opposition.
The other question I wanted to come to you is with the question of Tamil politics into the future. Now you see fragmentation, a certain degree of co-option, which might, I mean, for some people be a good thing. Because you no longer have a predominant party, a militant party, determining the politics of the country and of Tamils as a homogeneous entity. The fragmentation might be in and of itself democratic. But, that periods where people get to express their political aspirations through different political parties. Where do you see this moving forward, also leading up to 8th, but also beyond? I mean, the future of Tamil politics is something that has interested many political commentators. You've written on it. Where do you see it evolving?